It will be built in 3 phases. I think that is extremely important to note because some tweaking will have to be done along the way. There are those unknowns, the things that can't be predicted, and so to build in 3 phases is not only necessary fiscally speaking, but it will be, I think, it is a wise decision. It's seen as not evolutionary. That's how the chancellor comes at it. It is revolutionary, meaning that we're taking, we believe, quantum leaps. There are going to be significant risk involved. We're trying to have reconfigurable spaces, again acknowledging the unknowns and wanting to be ready for whatever the academic needs are.
So it will be revolutionary and expeditionary,
yes,
in the sense that it will be adaptive to the new developments.
Yes.
The next type of facility that we'd like to talk about, and I'll introduce this very briefly, is the dropping of work and learning centers into urban activity centers and even rural and suburban centers as well. And a good example of this is Reston Town Center in Reston, Virginia, which is a multi-function urban activity center that is having its functions extended by dropping learning centers and work centers into it. The same thing has happened in Northern Virginia, where I live, at Tyson's Corner, and at other places like that. And it's happening, of course, with the Sylvan Learning Centers, with their new Caliber program, with Kaplan Centers, with many other institutions and organizations that are doing this. We have to really keep in mind the vision that over the next 5 to 10 years, hundreds, if not thousands, of these kinds of centers are going to be dropped into major malls, major business areas, and create new learning and work fused together opportunities throughout society. At this time, Sally Johnstone, Dr. Sally Johnstone, I'd like to invite you to comment on the 4th type of space that we have discussed, namely learning and experience-rich settings.
Thanks, Don. I think to do that, we're going to move away from campuses for just a moment and think instead about another type of arena, and that is the world of museums. I think a very good example of this is the Exploratorium in San Francisco, which, as you know, is housed in their Palace of Fine Arts, so it's a museum, and yet it's a very interactive learning environment as well. They have not only their public exhibition spaces, which change, and my understanding is also tour to some extent, but in addition to that, they have a Center for Teaching and Learning. And in that Center for Teaching and Learning, again, it's all experiential. It's not a nice lecture hall where pre-service and in-service teachers who would use this environment would come in and just sit. It is rather a true learning environment where the teachers are modeling, if you will, and learning to model the kinds of things that they should and can be doing in their own classrooms. I think, too, they have a very nice website, and it's hot linked to the website associated with this particular program. And even through the website, you can begin to explore some of these areas. I notice on the screen they have the memory one. They have some wonderful experiments that all of you probably remember from your introductory psychology classes. But these are ones you don't just hear about. Even online, you can go in and play with these things. I know I spent quite some time earlier this week playing with the fractals demonstration, something I've always wanted to push the buttons and see develop. It was quite fun. I think, too, that it's important to note that there's almost 10,000 school children that go through there a year, either in formal or informal ways. And when my nieces and nephews were much younger, it was their favorite place to go when they visited their grandparents in the San Francisco area. And I'm absolutely certain that that's why they've been so successful in college now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. The 5th type of space that we won't mention much here because we're going to later have a film clip of a virtual learning environment that's fairly exciting, is virtual learning environments. And so that really completes the 5 classes of facilities. The thing to think about these spaces, physical and virtual, is that over the next 5 or 10 years they are coming together. And throughout society, in academic settings, we're going to have this rich mixture of physical and virtual space, and it will be the canvas on which learning and work activities fused together will occur. At this point, we're going to be very fortunate to have a film clip from George Mason University, which not only lets us see the University Center, the George Johnson University Center, in active use by students, but hear from some of the people who were materially involved in its development, planning, and implementation.
The Johnson Center is a great place to eat. There are a lot of options for food, and also it's a very convenient email station upstairs. You can check your email after you eat.
After I get done having an interesting conversation, I go run up to the third floor and go to the computer lab and check email or type of paper.
Some people like you're absolutely quiet, and so you have those rooms. And some people like it kind of quiet, and so you have these rooms that are kind of connected with the atmosphere. You can hear people talking.
The architecture of the building, I think it's a nice centerpiece for the university.
I like it. It's big. There's a lot of space and a lot of comfortable seats.
I spend the majority of my day here. I come in the morning, I go between classes, I come after classes, I do all my papers here.
It was absolutely crucial, it seemed to us. Building had to be big. Building had to be absolutely flexible. That is, to fit the notion of a place of exploration where there were no boundaries, no mental boundaries, where all things could come together. It had to be flexible. In a sense, you had to be able to take down the physical wall boards just the way you had to take down the intellectual compartments. So a place like this, large enough to accommodate huge numbers of students, but students from every point in the compass, is, it seems to me, essential.
People had an opportunity to work together, get to know one another, plan the use of the building for at least 2 years prior to the opening. And given the fact that university organizations, like many organizations, are very separated from one another, I think this was a key element in opening the building on a very smooth basis, because people who never would see each other got to talk to each other and see each other every week prior to the building opening, and that has continued.
By creating the Johnson Center, that helped create a center place, what I call a place to hang out between classes, or a place just to stay on campus and socialize. Students get to meet one another, and they can interact and do a lot of different things. And so it was part of the mission, the task force, as a matter of fact, was to begin to define what it is we wanted this building to be, to help create a central point on campus for people together and a place that people can go for activities, whether it's academic or whether it's social.
And the easy way to do that was to take a student union and yoke it with a library. And once we started with that concept and we left people thinking about that, then their thoughts simply erupted.
Virginia is willing to pay for academic buildings. So the library portion, which was about 1/3 of the facility, was funded through the state through a general fund. The other 2/3, which is a student union building, was funded through a revenue bond, and it's funded by student fees. It gave us the leverage to build a $32 million facility.
Traditionally, libraries have measured their value by the size of their collections, but we knew that that was no longer going to be possible, because in the digital age, students would be able to get their information from many sources. We also recognized that in the future there would be more need than ever to teach students how to access that information, use it, and very importantly, how to evaluate it. In the Johnson Center, we built a library that had the latest and available technology, and we also created many teaching spaces so that we could teach in classrooms, to small groups, and on a one-on-one basis. We sought to hire librarians who loved to teach, and we encouraged them to get involved in the development, delivery, and evaluation of the curriculum. We also encouraged them to experiment with different ways of teaching, including using technology, but not limited to that. What we discovered, really, was that the most important thing was the relationships that librarians were able to build with faculty and students.
Work in the information age is now team work, and that one of the things that we look for from graduates is not the ability to take tests, to pass another version of an SAT examination, but people who can take initiative, who can take responsibility, and who can work with other people.
The Johnson Center opening at the same time that New Century College started turned out to be a great, happy coincidence. The building was supposed to be a learning center, but by having a college in its first-year classes